violence has begun.
Oh.
Oh, look, it's coming back up. Okay, it's coming. I don't have an explanation. It's my internet. It went down to 0 and now it's back up. But I was still talking to you guys, so I don't even get that. We're still. Let me just see if it's still going out on the vertical. Yeah, it looks like it. So if I'm continuing to stream and I'm still streaming to restream.io, which I am, then that means a new instance was made in YouTube for the rest of this. I don't have an answer to this question.
Nobody knows.
No, but we are live again.
Good. Then let's continue.
All right.
Yeah, we're back. For some reason. Okay. So let me go back into... Hold on a second. Let me just make sure that I'm looking at the right things first. All right, this is the vertical. So the vertical never stopped. Only the horizontal one did.
Oh, just movies and content about masculinity.
Oh yeah, about men. And you were trying to, Allison, you were trying to make a point about something.
Oh, I did.
Okay, you did.
Well,
did it drop while we were doing that though?
Well, I wasn't necessarily making a point about, the old school kind of movie makers or even the ones that still exist. The point I was making was that these individuals go out of their way to try to find like people who aren't given a voice at the same time as they completely destroy boys' voices, and they don't consider that to be kind of legitimate. Like they would probably look at Clint Eastwood's work and just say that's Hollywood schlock. It's not even legitimate as a expression of masculinity, because there is no legitimate expression of masculinity, because masculinity is patriarchy forcing boys not to be girls. So I'm saying that in conclusion, I pointed out once again that there are 72 genders, legitimate genders, but man is not one of them. Okay. So let's do some more.
Let's do some more. So basically that was they're bringing out another panel, but they're sort of continuing the same discussion. Okay.
Thank you. And thank you to our second panel. We have Matt Pinkett, Misogyny and Gender Equity Specialist and Gendering Change English teacher. Dr. Daniel Guinness, co-founder and managing director of Beyond Equality. And Darren Northcott, who is now standing in for Jane, who's the Deputy General Secretary of the NASUWT, but Darren is stepping in as National Official for Education. So thank you and welcome to you all. Very grateful for your time. And I'm going to start with David.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for coming in today. Darren, thrown in at the deep end, but I'm going to start with you, if I may. Just thinking about misogyny in schools, what kind of misogynistic behaviour are you seeing in schools between pupils? And do you think the level of this behaviour is changing, either increasing or decreasing?
That's a really important point. Our members report to us consistently and more than they ever have done misogyny in schools between pupils, but also I think picking up on the question that was raised earlier between pupils and female members of staff as well. So misogyny is becoming a very unfortunate but more deeply rooted characteristic feature of too many of our schools. That's the very clear message from our members.
Matt, do you have any views on this?
Yeah, I totally
well, of course they'd
echo
say. Of course they say this because they are deeply misandrist institutions. And any pushback against them, they consider to be misogyny.
Yeah.
And it's like, at what point do people wake up and realize? And of course they don't, because we're all part of a long historical tradition in which we sacrifice men and boys for the benefit of everyone else. And this is just another iteration of that. The fact that they don't even talk about misandry.
Yeah.
Like they don't even, I mean, maybe they do in another situation, but they don't talk about it. They don't seem to have as much of a concern for misandry. And yet the studies that I've seen suggest there are more extreme misandrists than extreme so-called misogynists. And that misandry, not misogyny, is actually a causally predictive factor for sexual violence. So in other words, misandrous women are more likely to rape or grape than misogynist men. Go figure. So
Well,
you would think that that would be a concern, and yet it never is. And then
Well-
they don't think, well, maybe this discrepancy in the treatment between boys and girls is causing a lot of the anger that
Yeah,
we're
and
seeing in the
resentment,
movies, and
grievance.
resentment and criticism and distrust. That maybe they're noticing this, that they're marked less, that they're medicated in order to act like girls, that girls get constant
positive feedback.
that girls can pretty much do whatever they want. They're no longer jailed. They're no longer subject to the same punishments. Like, at what point do we recognize that treating a group of people like shit causes them to be pissed?
It reminds me of the you remember the theater troupe in Sweden that put on the Valerie Solanis's book as a play, right? Which was you know, basically what was her book called? What was it called?
Oh, Scum
The
Manifesto.
Scum
or-
Manifesto.
Scum
Scum.
Manifesto.
The
The
Scum
Society-
Manifesto. Yeah.
The Society
yeah.
for Cutting Up Men.
Yeah, and so they put it on as like a you know, a live show for middle school kids. And the girls were seated on nice comfy chairs, right? And they were given candy and refreshments. And the boys were seated on the hard gymnasium floor, way off to the side. And the performers would and not given anything, and then the performers would get the girls to like yell at the boys and you know, scream at them and stuff. And it's literally just what I want my kids to be doing at school. That was not deemed misandrist. Right? And it was the same theater troupe that staged that weird video, you remember?
Mm-hmm.
Where they
No.
just walked up to a guy who was sitting on a lounge chair on the dock reading a newspaper. They just kind of walked up behind him and like shot him in the head for no reason. And then they did a little dance, right?
I don't remember that.
You don't
Not
remember
surprised,
that?
though. No.
Yeah, no, they set off a confetti cannon right after they did it. They got in a line, 5 of them or something, set off a confetti cannon and then like put on some music and did a little dance, you know, and I'm just like, what the fuck is this? This was back in like 2011 or 2012. And yeah, no, it's like I was just like, this is Andrew Tate is the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Andrew Tate, not these women who are destroying boys' futures by marking them down.
Yeah, no,
no.
not even these women who glorify the senseless murder of men, okay, and then go and put on their show for middle school kids, right, where they single out boys, right, and berate them, and give girls the deluxe treatment, okay, because that's what girls deserve, and I'm just like, and the school is like, yeah, no, this is perfectly in line with our curriculum, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this is public school in Sweden, and you know, and then you got these girls in Sweden, these young women in Sweden who are like, well, yeah, I was raped, right? But I didn't report it because it was a Muslim migrant, right? And it's like, and I'm like, where the fuck are women at? Like, can women please fucking screw their heads on straight? Can they
women
please clean
stop
out their
womening
fucking
so bad?
headgear?
Yeah.
Okay, let's keep going.
All right. Playing some more.
What was said about the misogyny and the sexual harassment that's happening to female staff. It's rife. I don't think there's enough being done to protect female members of staff. In keeping children safe in education, there's guidance as to what constitutes child-on-child sexual harassment, but I can't find, I might be wrong, but I can't find any documentation which outlines to members of staff exactly what constitutes child-on-staff sexual harassment. In fact, I often think that as teachers, we're expected, because we're adults, oh, that boy's just put something in my body, or that boy has just called me a name. Well, I'm the adult, so, and he's just a child, he's just learning. The amount
That
of
boy
female teachers I've spoken
just put
to.
something in my body. Do you mean the adult woman just graped the boy?
Yeah, like I'm like, what?
What?
Like,
that escalated quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm like, oh, instead of
Did you say in or on?
I don't know.
sounded like in.
In.
I mean, it did sound like it, but they're English, so I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah, no,
They're speaking tea to each other, and I don't really. Sometimes I don't get what they're saying.
Yeah, no, me neither. But it's like I'm just fucking blown away. You're the adults in the fucking room, right? And if you cannot foster an environment, no, not control, foster an environment where the children don't hate you, then maybe you need to go.
And I mean, maybe they hate you in the way that they, should. Like you're strict.
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay. Yeah, no, but nobody really hates a strict teacher. Nobody really hates, a teacher who's, you know what kids hate? They hate unfairness.
Yes.
Right? And this is one of the
unfairness going on here.
This is one of the, or injustice. This is one of the first things, revelations about Pip in the novel Great Expectations, right? Like there is nothing more that a child considers more atrocious than injustice, right? And it's like the death of a parent, not as bad as injustice, right? Like all of these horrible things that can happen to a child, even being punished severely, right? As long as it was just, right? Most boys are okay with it, right? But injustice is it hits at children, right? So hard, right? Like what really got the kids in my junior high school, right? There was one teacher who played favorites, right? And he was detested. He was absolutely detested by everybody except his favorites. Okay. And there was one teacher, oh God, what was her name? Teen camp. She was an absolute cunt, right? An absolute freaking cunt to everybody, and lazy, and a bad teacher. And like she literally, one of the students lipped her off, and she fucking wound up and fucking punched her in the face. Right? And then the student hit her back, and the teacher was put on paid suspension for 3 days. Yeah, no, but I mean, like she was just the most god awful teacher, right? But like people don't mind strict as long as you're strict with everybody. People don't mind lenient as long as you're lenient with everybody, right? People really like as long as everybody's being treated fairly, right? Equally, right? Like they don't mind. Like you don't hate a teacher just because he's strict. You hate him because he's only strict with you.
Okay, let's keep going. Yeah, how
Right.
much do we have left of
been
this?
sexually harassed, physically sexually harassed. And I mean it when I say women have had things put in their bodies by children, and then the day
Yeah,
later or even an
that's
hour
called
later,
being
they're expected to carry on
Things?
teaching that child. Um,
Well, I mean, if how? Like
Yeah, what-
in their ear, in their mouth, like, and when you say child, what do you mean? Like how old?
Yeah,
Are they
what's-
like taught? Like are they
explanation.
kindergartners that? Yeah, you can't just say that. Like you're basically getting to the point now where teachers are like, children are sexually assaulting us, and it's like, yeah, but do they even know that that's what they're doing if they're children? Like,
Mhm.
this is like really
children of
fuzzy
children of what
territory.
children of what age and what
Yeah.
things are they putting in what body parts, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and under what circumstances, right? Like is some strapping like 16-year-old boy cornering teacher after school in her classroom and raping her, or is it like I don't know, somebody giving the teacher a wet willy,
Or is it the teacher actually
raping the student?
raping the student? Like, because that is a student putting something inside a teacher, and it's called, well, I mean, not in the UK, because the UK doesn't actually have statutory rape when it comes to women raping minors, graping minors.
Okay, just can we just stop saying grape, okay?
Oh yeah.
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 Okay.
If you don't want to stop saying grape, I'm gonna come over there to Saskatchewan and grape you in the mouth so hard till your parents cry out for mercy.
I got a Rumble rant I want to read really quick. Xeranx gave us a Rumble rant for $1 and says, it doesn't matter if it's in or on. These educators are placing themselves in the position of being victims of people who have to raise their hand and ask for the bathroom pass. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yep.
I'm just
That's
saying
where we're
one
at.
sounds more extreme than the other. So that's why I'm being pedantic about that. But okay.
Yeah. Yeah. We need to know what the heck this means.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did the stream have like restart or something?
Yeah, it started a new one. I told you when it dropped
instance.
off, it started a new instance. Only on the
YouTube is-
horizontal though. Only in the
YouTube is
horizontal. The other one's still-
having some issues, I guess.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So I really do think that the government needs to put some guidance in place. There's advice from the unions, but actually no, as far as I can see, any guidance, and of course it's happening to male teachers, but largely it's happening to female teachers. And for some female teachers, it's not just every so often, it's lesson to lesson.
I just want to jump in on a couple of points you both made. So I think you're both in agreement.
Why are these
Okay, so
juveniles being sexualized? Because that's
Okay.
generally an indication of sexual abuse.
okay, also like does no one remember the movie Stand and Deliver? Right? Does no one remember the movie, the one with Michelle Pfeiffer, where she goes in as a teacher in a freaking inner city school? Right? Does nobody remember The Substitute with John Berenger or whatever his name was? Like
Tom Berenger.
Tom
yes.
Berenger. Yeah, no, like okay, so we have schools. We have schools that are out of control. Why are they out of control? Like that, it's lesson to lesson. It's not just day
Because
to
of
day.
internet commentators, Karen.
Yeah,
we
no,
boys
it's
out of control.
okay. Well, and it's because young men take their phones to bed and wake up at 2 a.m. with an empty feeling in their soul, and it's filled by Andrew Tate. Okay, why are they taking their phones to bed, and why do they have an empty feeling in their soul? Well, it's because their single mother lets them take their phones to bed because it keeps them quiet, right? And they have an empty feeling in their soul because their mother is either like a fucking lame ass, lazy ass fucking welfare queen, right? Who is not a role model for anybody, okay, except for more welfare queens, or she's busy all the time and has no fucking time for them, right? And she definitely doesn't have any time to get them, some kind of male role model because she lives in a men desert. There's no men over 25 years old in men deserts. It's like 10 square kilometers with no adult men, right? Just nothing but single mothers with children. And I'm just like, and adult sons who are in gangs and live at home. And that's it. Right? And I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe, you know how it was like, oh, Kamala Harris is the border czar. That means she's going to look into the root causes of migration. Maybe we could look into the root causes of this.
Yep. All right,
Okay.
let me see. See 5312. Government response to misogyny. Okay.
Themselves in these really unfortunate ways. So I think the government's listening on behaviour and on safeguarding, but at some point, and sooner rather than later, we are going to have to get to a point where we're providing good guidance to schools on how they can address issues of pupil on staff violence and inappropriate behaviour and abuse, and particularly that's driven by misogynist motives.
To be very
Particularly.
clear, that guidance doesn't
but it's
currently
not-
exist.
Not
Particularly.
The
Well,
government's not governmenting enough in this instance. Why isn't the government doing something about children in schools?
Well, what's infuriating too is like, particularly misogyny, right? And it's just like, okay, well, are we actually looking at the proportions of incidents, right? And enumerating them according to the proportions of gender in the staff, right? Are we doing that? And then on top of that, because the staff is mostly female, and then on top of that, if you actually look at, is it really misogyny, or is it just that they hate school and want people to have to walk in their pee?
Mm.
Right? Like this is what my friend's kid said, right? He intentionally, when he was in kindergarten, he intentionally plugged the toilet with paper towels and peed on the bathroom floor. And when he was asked why he did it, he said, I hate school, so I want people to have to walk in my pee. And then the teacher asked him, where did you get an idea like that? And he said, from my brain. People get ideas from their brains. But
Yep.
yeah, no, school was not fun for him either. And part of the reason was he was bigger than everybody else, right? And my stepson, the one who's passed away, he was also bigger than everybody else in his class. He was bigger than all of the kids his age. And more was expected of him because of that, because he looked older than he was. And yeah, no, and because he could do more damage than other kids. Just because he was bigger and stronger than everybody else. And he was not a bad kid. Christopher was one of the most well-intentioned kids I've ever seen. He was the first person, if somebody was hurt, to ask if they needed help, if they were okay, if they needed help, right? He was very, very, very good kid. But rambunctious and clumsy and always getting hurt, and had a little issue with impulse control, right? Like, he was one of those kids who was like, well, I could jump from there. Oh, I can pirouette in my rubber boots. My rubber boots are so strong, I can pirouette on the nail sticking out of this board, right? And then the nail goes through his foot and he asks his brother, why did you let me do that? Right? And it's just like, okay, well, this is a kid who's got some issues, but none of them have anything to do with hating anybody, right? And none of them have to do with violent tendencies. And he was just treated like absolute crap. And they wanted to medicate him so bad. So freaking bad. And the one thing his mother did right was refuse to do it. But yeah, no, she did a whole bunch of things wrong too, like parade of men through the house, right? Uncle here, uncle this guy, uncle that guy, and yeah, it was just wasn't. We asked when he was in grade 8. We asked her, right? You know, if you can't handle him, send him to us, right? And you know, we're in a tiny little town. We're not in the middle of the big city. We're in a tiny little town. He can't get into hardly any trouble. There's plenty of places for him to run his energy off. And you know, he loves fishing and he loves hiking and he loves all those things. And camping and all of that. So send him to us. And she refused, and you know, didn't work out. But I'm saying, you know, like, you have these boys and they just don't fit into the environment. And I'm sorry, ADHD is not a disorder. It's not a disorder, right? They looked at 2 African tribes. Well, basically same tribe, right? Like same gene pool, intermarried, right? One was nomadic, one had just gone sedentary, settled down and become agrarian about 70 years prior. And they actually went and assessed them for symptoms of ADHD, or what we would consider ADHD, and general health. And they found that in the sedentary population, the men, mostly men who showed symptoms of ADHD, had very poor health, right? The ones that showed symptoms of ADHD in the nomadic population, the nomadic herding population, they had the best health in their entire tribe, right? And it's because it's not because there's something wrong with these people. It's because there's something about their environment that does not suit who they are, right? So maybe instead of medicating them into zombiehood, we could try to make an environment that is compatible with people who are on this I guess you could call it a spectrum.
Karen, but that would require blaming the women who primarily construct the environment for boys.
And yeah, well, and it's work. It's actual work.
Yeah, it's work. Laziness, cowardice, and those are, I've noticed that these are the 2 biggest forces in ideological possession: laziness and cowardice. Okay.
All right. A little bit more and then I have to go.
All right. Let me just check here what time code we're at. 58:17. Let's jump ahead to the influence of the manosphere on young men. How about that? That sounds good, right?
Yeah. Looks like that's probably going to be the last one.
Yeah, that's probably where it gets pretty juicy.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Kiris.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all for coming in. We had the first panel there mention the manosphere. So, Matt, I was really interested from your experience. To what extent do you think social media is having an impact on misogyny amongst young men and boys?
Yeah, I think it's having
a huge impact.
I think when the boys I do workshops with and the boys that I speak to up and down the country, the older they get now, as I think Jack mentioned in the previous panel, Andrew Tate is actually a bit of a joke now for those older boys. Also, interestingly, the popular boys. It's not the popular boys that like Andrew Tate. Andrew Tate teaches boys how to be strong and good looking, and the popular boys
are already strong and good looking
in many school communities. But yeah, it's lower down again, I think Jack said, it's influencers on YouTube with just 6,000 followers. There's lots of copycat Andrew Tates, and I do think actually
6,000 followers. Don't we have like 9,000?
10, almost 11.
I wouldn't go as far to say that,
at least
Andrew
on this
Tate
channel,
isn't a problem. I think if we can tackle Andrew Tate and his pernicious influence, then it sends a good message to all those who are trying to grift and earn a quick buck by copying his model. For me, it's not actually the overtly misogynistic.
This is like watching, literally, it's like watching a bunch. It's like watching a bunch of foxes discuss how they're going to manage the hen house.
Yeah, they're
all I can say is when I hear these people talk, it's like, have you ever actually been on the internet? Like, do you like?
no.
I'm sorry, it's the wild. It's called the Wild West for a reason, right? And yeah, no, it can be hard on kids, right, when they first venture on. But like kids who are well adjusted because they were raised to be well adjusted don't get sucked into like grifters and stuff like that, right? It's the ones who were neglected by their parents who like they just don't the parents don't
Karen.
really show any interest.
I think I hate to tell you, but I think they're talking about people like us.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Because we are actually pointing the finger back at them and saying, don't you have a obligation of care towards the boys in your charge?
you have a duty
The
of care, yes.
minors, you have a duty of care. To the minors, you are mentoring and teaching to become adults. Because it sounds to me like this entire parliamentary procedure is a bunch of lazy, cowardly, and incompetent human beings explaining to the world why their failures are actually to be blamed on the people who they've failed. That's what I see.
Yeah.
You've failed to engage boys. You've failed to accurately assess their abilities and give them the honors that they deserve in terms of academia. You have failed to recognize that boys have a right to be the way boys are, and they aren't just being forced by patriarchy to stop being girls. Thus, girls and girl behavior is the standard by which all child behavior should be measured. You have failed to protect them from being over medicated in ways that are destroying their bodies.
And
You have
brains.
failed to protect them from sexual and verbal and probably physical assault by people like you in positions of power. You failed to protect them from being assaulted by their fellow female students. You've also failed to hold female students accountable for their behavior and girls in general accountable for their criminal activities in the UK. You are failures, and you are sitting around and adjudicating on where blame should be placed. And of course, you're placing the blame on the people that you control. Why are you placing your blame on the people that you can control? Because you can control them, right? You can force them to take that blame. You can totally and utterly and completely fail boys on every single level. And then you can fail them again by forcing them to take blame for your failing of them. And that is what is incredibly astounding about it. And I'm never going to stop saying this. I don't care how censored our channel gets. I don't care how demonetized, how crippled we become in the algorithm. I am never going to stop blaming people like you for what you have done to boys and telling boys you are not responsible for your teachers' failures, for your mother's failures, for your government's failures, and do not make them do not let them make you responsible for their failures and their failure to help you and to protect you. Right? Do not ever let them make you responsible for their failures, and in particular, their failures when it comes to you. These people failed boys. These people failed boys. They failed them. And now they have the audacity to blame boys for them having failed them. Okay. I'm got a little feisty. I apologize.
That's all right. I got to go in a minute here. So
Okay.
All right,
let's
you want me to
do
play a
one
little
more.
bit more of this? Okay,
more.
let me just see. They're still talking about this. So
Issues on their like body image. I think the emphasis on dating. I even think the mainstream media, things like Love Island, where people are talking and using phrases like body count, which is a military term for how many people you've killed, to refer to how many people you've had sex with, which is deeply problematic. And the fact that lots of parents and teachers are watching this program with unbridled glee and talking about it. So is it any wonder that this misogyny and this toxic kind of coercive control that you see in a lot of relationships is filtering down into the male communities that exist within a school? So
the
yes,
male
social media is a
communities.
problem, but I don't necessarily think the mainstream media should be let off either. It's not just what they're watching, it's what they're seeing in their daily lives that is having an impact too.
So he's basically saying it's not just like the internet, it's also just like the mainstream, and that
Oh,
teachers
it's
are
not. It's
watching these reality TV shows, and
yeah,
so I'm
teachers
not letting them
and
off the hook.
mothers.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and mothers and stuff. So
yeah. No, it's like, I'm sorry, if you were raised by a single mom who watches Jerry Springer all day, right? Well, and then you look at. I would recommend anybody watching this to go watch Tommy Sotomayor's presentation at ICMI 19, or was it 19? Yes.
it was
And
19, yes.
yeah, and just watch that, because it just really he he does it with humor, a lot of it, right? But it really reveals the dysfunction in the matriarchy, right? In single motherland,
Yeah.
right? The absolute dysfunction for boys. I mean, like, I think he said, as one of America's greatest poets, Tupac, once said, even when you was a crack fiend, mama, you always was a black queen, mama.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, uh yeah, maybe that's not the best way to raise a boy.
The bar for queendom is very low.
Mhm.
I think that's what he said.
Yeah. No, and it's just like, okay. And the fact that, he said, if you did a yo mama on the playground, you were looking to get your ass kicked, right? But it's like, yo daddy ain't shit. You know my daddy. Because that's what they hear from their moms. That their daddy ain't shit, right? And okay, well, your daddy ain't shit, okay? And your mama don't need no man, and your dad is half of you, right? And these boys know that, right? They know that, I'm a product of both my parents, right? And they're like, okay, so I'm not shit and no woman needs me. Well, that's great.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, and it was very hard when I was going through my divorce to not badmouth their dad in front of them, right? And their dad gave me a really hard time during that whole process, right? He made it very difficult and expensive, much more than it had to be. But I was just like, he's their dad, and he's not just their father, he's their dad. And you just can't freaking say shit like that about their dad in front of them. Right? So, but a lot of women don't see it that way. And I don't know. I think they cripple their boys, sense of self, right? Because, well, if I can't, I definitely don't want to be like my dad, but there's no men around me, right, who I would want to be like. And, you know, I don't definitely don't want to be like my dad, but there's no men around me, right, who I would want to be like. And, you know, I don't definitely don't want to be like my dad, but there's no men around me, right, who I would want to be like. And, you know, I don't definitely don't want to be like my dad, but there's no men around me, right, who I would want to be like. And, you know, So I'll just go with these older boys and get into trouble.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they'll dare me to give the teacher a wet willy, and then I'll be one of those evil, dastardly, misogynist boys who put something in a female teacher's body.
For sure.
or we're actually sexually abused by that teacher.
Mm,
Mm-hmm.
mm.
Okay. All right. So I think that's did you have a final or did you want to finish this time code? Did they go any
No,
further?
I mean,
That's
there's
it.
nah. They get into like other stuff later, toxic masculinity, and
Oh, for fuck's sake. I'm
Oh,
not
God.
getting started on that.
no, I know.
Let's just end this
What
bullshit.
was the general gist of what they said about toxic masculinity?
This guy here is basically saying that toxic masculinity gets a bad rap, and so we need to like be better able to explain it so that people don't think that it just refers to all masculinity. So
Oh, so he's going the
it needs to
he's
be
going the-
rebranded. It
He's
needs to
going
be rebranded.
the Michael Kimmel route. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you need a 2-year gender studies, 2 years of gender studies courses to understand what they mean by toxic masculinity, right? This term you throw around like confetti, right? Thinking it doesn't harm anybody. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. You should stop using it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just understand there's immature masculinity and there's mature masculinity, and that as men grow older, hopefully with the right mentorship, they grow wiser and more in command of themselves. They develop emotional and self-mastery, right? That's what happens. That's what's supposed to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what the hell is this shit?
What?
It's a drawing I did while we were talking.
Okay, that's not me though, right?
No, that's not you. It's the
Well,
woman.
but there's a cigarette, isn't there?
There's a cigarette on a stick like Cruella de Vil.
Oh, and
Right.
alcohol.
A gigantic damn forehead. No, it's just some drink that she has. in it.
What woman? The woman in the video?
The woman in the green and the green
That was
dress with
sitting
polka
next to this guy
Yeah,
with the male pattern baldness.
baldness, gigantic
Yeah.
forehead girl, woman.
Let's not pick on her. She's going bald. That's just sad for a woman.
No, that's not picking on her. It's a caricature.
Anyways, it is pretty good.
Yeah.
Based on,
Yeah,
you know,
we're
like,
at we're at time.
I
though.
don't know. Call me sensitive, but anytime you do a drawing with someone with like a bottle and a cigarette,
Nah,
I
it's
think you're
not you.
drawing me.
And I took that shit personally.
I did
Yeah,
a combination
yeah.
of her and Hunter S. Thompson, and also Cruella de Vil, 'cause she had a gigantic forehead as well.
All right. Okay, I gotta go. My dogs need outing.
off.
All right, I'm taking off. Eh?
Wait, Allison, sign
To the-
out first because when Karen
the
leaves,
Great
it's
White
going to change the
North.
layout.
All right. Okay. So, thank you for joining us. Appreciate your kind attention. If you want to comment after the show, I think we did miss a super chat, actually. I know Karen left, but we probably should pick that up. It was on the vertical stream.
Let me see viewer activity. No, I don't see anything.
Yeah, I saw.
I
super
saw
chat.
like a membership comment and I read it.
Oh, okay.
What?
Well, no, there was it was actual super chat. It was Senior Sticks, I believe.
Oh, for some reason I'm not seeing it unless it was on the old stream.
Yeah, it might have been on the old stream. I can take a look and see if I can find it myself. No, you'd have to go look in the back room. I could try that to make sure that we get it. But yeah, if you want to send a message, please do so at feedthebadger.com/justthetip. Very much appreciated if you do. And don't have our monthly fundraiser turned on yet, so don't worry about that yet. But yeah, send us a tip and a message, feedthebadger.com/justthetip.
Senior Six gave us $2 American, says Western women want to be incels, HBR Cafe Coffee. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right.
A little bit confusing, but
Yeah, a little bit. All right. Well, if you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, hit the bell for notifications, leave us a comment, let us know what you guys think about what we discussed on the show today. And please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of the Rantzerker, and we'll talk to you guys in the next one.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.